online and one-on-one coaching. Mr. USA 2001, Quincy Taylor. 4 times Mr. Olympia athlete. Show preparation and general fitness. 30 years of experience. Bring out your monster. myteqt1@gmail.com. @Quincy.monster.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body, and that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our 3rd year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching the Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, it is all on the tables. Now bringing Dave Palumbo. Dave, things kicking into high gear now. This past weekend, of course, we had the Pittsburgh Pro with the guest posing, with the ceremonial guest posing, where we see some of the top open class. And in this case, we saw Derek Lunsford, who made his, intention that he intends on kind of defending his 212 Olympia title, but obviously speculation abound as to whether or not his, presence in the 212 is going to be short-lived. And then, of course, Indy Pro this weekend, New York Pro the following week. So the contest schedule officially fully in gear.
Yeah, it's exciting. This is May is always kind of like the beginning of the, you get that the early shows at the Arnold, but then when we talk about the heart of the contest season is really May. It starts, with the Pittsburgh, now we have Indy and then New York. And then of course, we start getting into all the top NPC national events like Junior USA, Junior Nationals, USA, and then we have Masters and all that stuff. So it's gonna be a busy year. I think we're back on the normal schedule now. Everything seems to be happening when it's supposed to. There's no more COVID restrictions, so that makes the season that much more exciting. And obviously seeing the guest posers on stage in Pittsburgh is always exciting because it's kind of like a little preview for the Olympia. I mean, people weren't really talking about Hunter Labrada that much, but Chris Aceto and I were discussing him, and this guy could win the Olympia this year too. He's got shape and structure. If he comes in with insane conditioning, he was 4th last year. He's a guy that I think, could be a really dark horse guy that no one's looking at, but then all of a sudden he shows up at his best and, he wins the show. He's got the kind of like the meld between mass and, conditioning and structure. And sometimes that's the best look. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at the Olympia. Of course, I think the big story was the fact that Ramy was a no-show.
Right.
Didn't even call Jim Mannion. I talked to Jim Mannion via text. He texted me after he saw our Heavy Muscle radio show this past, I guess it was Monday or Monday night when it went up. And he said, you know what, Dave? I never even got a call from him. So, in other words, they had him booked to guest post, and the guy doesn't even pick up the phone and say, hey, Jim, I'm not going to make it. I don't feel good. So, no, he's MIA. No one knows what's going on. The rumor is, and this didn't come from Jim or anything like that, but the rumor that's floating around is that he's never going to compete again. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's huge when you have a reigning Mr. Olympia that is disappeared essentially. So who knows? Nothing surprises me anymore in our bodybuilding world. There's so many crazy things going on, and you know what? You just don't know what's going on in people's personal lives. I mean, look at Colin Van Moger. No one would have ever guessed this guy's going to try to kill himself jumping out of a window. I mean, everyone thinks he's got the world by the cojones. He's got following, he's making money. But sometimes if you're internally unhappy or something is not, what you're doing is not making you happy, or you feel too much pressure sometimes, sometimes the plan gets veered off track. And so I hope we do see Ramy on stage at the Olympia, but right now it's looking a little suspicious.
Hopefully we'll have some answers over the course of the next few days, and whatever we do find out, we'll be sure to report. And then, hopefully we see Ramy back on stage in the course of the next 6-7 months. Let's go to the questions, of course, on the show. The first question from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. GLP-1, what's your take on it on prep?
A lot of people have started using it, maybe not a lot, but there have been people that have started using it for appetite control, because it's one of these gut peptides, glucagon-like peptide, that's released after you eat a meal, and it kind of makes you feel like you're full. It also helps with blood sugar control a little bit. The problem is that there is technically pancreatic issues with this, and there's some kidney issues with this drug. They haven't really, I guess you could say, separated out exactly what the side effects are. I just feel like for bodybuilding purposes, we're on so many drugs anyway as competitors that do we really need another one in there? Now, if you have poor blood sugar control, this might be something that's good then for you. But if you don't, and you're just throwing in another substance to try to maybe help you get leaner, I don't necessarily think it's a smart thing to do. I think when you start putting too many different drugs together, you get that polypharmacy effect, and it never works out well. And then you get weird side effects and you don't even know what's causing it. You forgot you're taking the GLP peptide and you're like, oh man, that's what it was the whole time. So I would avoid it personally. I just want to just make a mention of the Dave Palumbo Experience app. A couple people, I guess, heard about it on the show that, we answer those 2 questions from the app every week, and they subscribed to the app, and they sent me 2 people at the same, was from last week, thanked me so profusely because they didn't realize what a wealth of knowledge and information there is in the app. Every article I ever wrote, every video I've ever done in one place. There's my workouts. There's every week we put up a workout. I do the Q&A video exclusively for the app. Plus I answer everyone's questions on the app in an open forum. So it's a really, really great resource if you guys are looking to constantly keep educating yourself, like a continuing education type of thing. And if you are trainers and you do pay a lot of taxes already because you're making a lot of money from your clients, this is continuing education for yourself. So you can write this off even. It's $29. It's not a big deal, but something that you might want to consider. I always wished and thought in my head that if I had like a place to check into, a couple times a week that would keep me updated on what's going on and answer questions and keep my mind fresh on concepts and the science of what's going on, that it would be a great resource. And so that's why I launched this whole thing. So just wanted to put that out there.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our show segments or updates. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate all of your support. Wow, another throwback question here. We do get these time to time, things that whether you will bring back or not. Duncan Schumann wants to know, will Dave ever bring back bros versus pros?
I stopped when we kind of stopped it when I moved to Florida because it was, we were doing a lot of it in New York and flying around. And when I had my kids, once you have kids, it's very hard to just get up and travel all over the place and, spend the whole weekend just, running a strength challenge. It's tough. I loved it. It was a labor of love. I absolutely loved that event. We started it. We originated it. I always wanted to give regular gym guys that train their butts off the opportunity to stand on stage, or I should say in the gym, toe-to-toe with an IFBB pro bodybuilder and lift against them. Because I think, and then put money and prizes up. And the funny thing is the pros very rarely won. It was always the gym bros that won. So I don't know if we'll ever do it again. I shouldn't say never. Probably as my kids get a little older and I can have a little bit more freedom in terms of travel and stuff like that, I think maybe we'll institute it. Maybe we'll do some down here in Florida at some point. Now that COVID is kind of over, maybe if I can do it locally where I can drive to it for the day, that might be a better option. I also wanted to bring up something. I just got word from a couple people today that John O'Regan passed away. That he was a pretty well-known trainer back in the day. I don't know how many people he was training these days, but when I was first coming up in the 90s, you know, he was one of the guys, one of the gurus, I guess you could say, that was helping out a lot of the younger guys. And I think he was still doing it. I think he had a stroke, and I think he wasn't doing well, but I just want to send out my condolences to his family.
Question. So we get this question almost every week. It's from Nick Delio or Adelio. Besides lowering body fat, how do you get veins to be more pronounced, particularly the bicep vein? Is there a certain exercise that I should focus on?
You know, I remember in high school, there was a kid who had such a great bicep vein. It was like a big cord right down the middle. And I was always like, man, and he had good arms too, which always helps. Now, I always had the bicep vein, but I never had a huge, you know, bulbous like Lee Priestish arm in high school. I was more of like that thin, you know, scrappy looking guy. So I think there is a certain genetic component to having veins in your, especially your bicep vein. But I think how lean you are also makes a big difference. Because I know guys that have big arms and I don't see their bicep veins until they're like super ripped. The rest of the year, there's no vein there. I always have a vein because I'm always pretty lean. So there's a genetic component to how big the vein is. There's a genetic component to obviously how lean you normally stay. And I think that, you know, as I got bigger, my veins got bigger too. So I always had veins in my legs. Like how many people really have a lot of veins in their legs just all the time? I did. And I had them in my arms and everything like that. And everyone told me, you know, when I was in high school, all the older kids are like, man, if you work out, those veins are going to look freaky looking, you know, when you get bigger. And they were right. The bigger I got, the more muscular I got. They got like huge cords. I mean, the ones in my legs are really big. I even have look at the vein. I have the vein in my neck. These two veins here, the carotid veins. So yes, there is a genetic component, but the veins will get bigger as you get bigger.
Let's go to barbells and badges. Your thoughts on vanadyl sulfate as a supplement?
You know, I used to like it back in the day. When in the 90s, you know, that was probably what I used before I ever tried insulin. And vanadyl sulfate really worked similar to insulin. It pushed carbohydrates into the muscle cells and out of the bloodstream. And if you took too much of that vanadyl, you actually went hypoglycemic. The problem with vanadyl sulfate is it's hard to quantify how much to take. You take one pill, how many grams of carbs does one pill take care of? I don't know. we would just pop them with meals. I really don't, there's no way to quantify it. So I like insulin better because insulin is something you can kind of say, all right, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take 5 units. I know I'm going to eat 50 grams of carbs. That's going to cover my carbs. Whereas vanadyl, it's hit or miss. I remember I took a vanadyl with a protein shake and I went to the gym about a half hour later. And during the middle of my workout, I went super hypo. I was like, you know, every side effect you could possibly get from going hypoglycemic, and I was eating, like drinking carb drinks and everything like that, and it was a terrible feeling. So once again, you never really knew how much it was going to work or how low it would lower your blood sugar. So that's the problem. And because you're orally taking it too, if you take it with a meal, it might take longer to absorb versus if you take it on an empty stomach. You know, does it work? It does work, but you know, like I said, how much you should take is sometimes a little questionable.
I think we had this one from last week. Immune system. So we time and time again get questions from, you know, bodybuilders that, you know, work demanding jobs, right? And having a balance between their diet, between their training, between their rest, it is a bit of a challenge given their work hours. So it's from Mike Barbarian. Extremely physical demanding day job that I go home and train, but it seems to be pushing my body too hard as I keep getting colds. What can I do to strengthen my immune system or make it that I'm not getting a cold every couple of months?
You know, lack of sleep, overtraining definitely runs the immune system down. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, eating a high protein diet, you know, working out, getting enough sleep, that's probably the culprit right there. When you don't sleep enough and you're training and pushing your body really hard, it runs the immune system down, and that's a lot of times is a problem. I like the injectable glutathione. I've been using that for a number of years now. I get it from TitanMedicalCenter.com. They send me a couple bottles, 2 bottles at a time. It's 200 milligrams per ml, and I take a shot every day of it usually. And while I'm taking that, I very, very rarely get sick. And if I do get sick, it doesn't last that long. So that has definitely, I noticed, has definitely made a big difference. Also, if I ever feel like a cold coming on, I up my vitamin C intake. So I don't take high vitamin C all the time. I'll just take what's in my V Mineralize, which is about 500 milligrams per day. But once I feel something that I might potentially be getting sick, because my kids, kids always get sick, I'll up the vitamin C to like 3,000 milligrams per day, in addition to the glutathione I'm already taking. And I noticed that I feel a lot better. I also use another product from TitanMedicalCenter.com. It's an injectable. It's a glutathione. It's called Triimmune. It's glutathione with zinc with vitamin C. Vitamin C injectable is really potent. So I'll use that if I also start feeling like I'm getting sick coming on. I'll start using that in place of the glutathione. I'll do the Triimmune because it's got all those ingredients in there. We know those are good also for immune system. So that's my little thing. Back in the day, people used to use echinacea. Echinacea supposedly also enhances immune system. I never felt like it worked or did anything whenever I took it. So try these. If you, like I said, if you don't want to do injectable type of stuff, then you could always take N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor to glutathione. Glutathione is only absorbable by injection. The precursor to it, N-acetylcysteine, NAC, can be orally ingested, and then your body can convert it into glutathione as it needs. So those are some options for you.
Powerlifter 880 has a I'm trying to see how this question or how your answer would either just best benefit our audience. So the question is, how training has changed as you've gotten older. And you also asked that as far as your diet. And obviously there's a clear delineation between your bodybuilding career and, where you are now. But I guess if you want to add some nuance as far as some of the things you've learned along the way and maybe some things that you advise your clients maybe as they transition past their bodybuilding career.
This is an interesting question, and I can answer it differently now than I would have maybe 5 years ago. Once I got my shoulders fixed and I have my shoulder replacements, I have unlimited range of motion. I feel good. I lift now exactly like I lifted when I was training for my biggest competitions. I train 5 days a week. If I can get in there 5 days a week, if not, I do it I combine it to 4 days, and I do the same exercises now. I had modified my exercises because I had bad shoulders, but I do all free weight stuff with some machines, and I train the exact same way. When on leg day, I squat, even though I have a half a quad on my right leg. I squat, I leg press on a straight-on vertical leg press machine. I do extensions and curls. On my chest day, I do incline, barbell presses. I do incline dumbbell presses. I do dumbbell flies. On my back day, I do pull downs and bent over rows, and I do the same exercise. I just don't go as heavy because those are the exercises that worked well for me, and I enjoy doing those. I just don't go crazy heavy because I don't need to push my body because I'm not trying to get bigger. I'm trying to just maintain my physique and be strong. So I do the same exercises. I go to the point where I feel like I'm pushing my body, where it's a challenge, but I'm not like trying to have guys, do forced reps with me and drop sets. I don't need to do that. And if you can do that and your body can hold up, great. Now, if you have injuries and you have to you can't squat because you have back problems. All right, well then you do hack squats, or you try Smith machine, or you try leg press if you have to. You modify according to what your deficiencies are. But if you can do I feel if you can do the exercises that always worked for your body, why change it? And so that's how I, modify. I just don't go as heavy. You have to take the mindset away that you must always be trying to break records in the gym as you get older. You don't want to do that because you do not want to get injured. Because if you get injured in the gym, you're going to be mad at yourself and say, why did I do this? I'm not even competing. I just want to feel good and look good, when I go out in public. So why am I trying to, set records and I wind up tearing a muscle? And because let's face it, as we get older, our bodies get a little more fragile in the sense that tendons tear a little easier, muscles tear a little more easily. You can have joint and connective tissue issues a little bit more easily because things wear down as we get older. Training is great for your body. Training at a very extreme level is not so great for your body as you get older.
We often talk about some of the emerging stars in bodybuilding. And I guess one of those, on the come bodybuilders out of China is Ping YunLong. Dave, I'm not sure if you've heard about him. I gave Tyler a couple of links to some pictures. He won the Thailand Pro a few weeks back. And we've actually gotten quite a few questions about him, but now right here on this forum, what do you make of Ping YunLong?
I am super impressed. A lot of people said, "Oh, the Thailand Pro is a weak show," and but it might have been a weak show in terms of the amount of great competitors. But Ping was amazing. I was super impressed. And I remember when we were recapping it on Heavy Muscle Radio. Chris Aceto and I were both going crazy over him. This guy is going to be definitely a factor, I think, here when he comes over to the U.S. and competes in some shows or the Olympia. I think he's got unlimited potential. I think he's got beautiful body parts. He's got great conditioning. He's got nice lines. He's got great inserted abs. Look at those delts and pecs that are striated. Glutes are striated. All he needs is a little more back. I think he's going to have, if he wants to really make a major impact on the IFBB pro scene, he got to get it back. Backs win shows. And that's just the way it goes. But I think this guy has, serious potential. And the fact that he was able to, look this way, and qualify for an Olympia this quickly just goes to tell you that he's going to definitely be a future star. Assuming he doesn't get hurt, I think we're going to see big things from him.
We'll take one final one from Daniel Donovan. Your biggest post-contest weight gain? Any funny anecdotes?
Yeah, funny. Ironically enough, you want to know what it is. No one would believe it probably, but the first show I ever did, I knew nothing, about anything. I had a guy advising me. I was 100% natural. I was taking 1 million herbal diuretics for like 2-3 days before the show because how else do you get rid of water? I was obsessed with water like every fledgling bodybuilder who gets on stage, right? Because you think, oh, can't have any salt, can't have any water. I got to take an herbal diuretic. So I was, torturing myself for like 2 days before the show. I was hard and dry on the stage, even though I wasn't very big. I was in shape and I was hard and dry. After the show was over, I had never experienced anything like this in my life. I was so hungry. I couldn't wait to eat. I had that list of all the foods I wanted to eat. The show's over. I went insane. I ate everything in sight. I drank. I didn't know anything about electrolytes and rebounds. Literally, I gained 40 pounds in the first, I'd say, 7 days. Okay, so I went from like 168 weigh-in to like over 200 pounds. And I looked huge. People couldn't believe how big I looked, because I blew up and the water was pretty, but then it got to the point when I started getting to that like 190 pound mark, eyes started to become like little slits. Like I looked like I was Asian or something like that. My face was hurt. It was so filled with fluid. And to be honest with you, I was panicking because my lower back pumps were insane. I was in pain. I didn't know what to do. So I was in medical school at the time. So I went to the infirmary there. I went to the hospital there, Westchester County Medical Center. And as a medical student, you can just walk in there and you can just, they'll do anything for you. They ran all these tests on me. And I remember the doctor came back to me. He said, there's nothing wrong with you. I said, well, my kidneys are fine. He's like, yeah. I said, why are they hurting so much? He goes, because you're retaining a ridiculous amount of fluid. He's like, when I was in Vietnam, we didn't drink for a week, and then we came back and we drank a case of beer. And I'm still here to talk to you about it. So I think you'll be fine. Which really didn't give me any advice as to what to do. But at that point, I realized, okay, you know what? I'm not in kidney failure. Let me take some more diuretics. So I went and took some more herbal diuretics, and then the water came off me. And once it did, I felt amazing. I felt great. And then I realized what was going on. I was having this crazy rebound because I didn't have salt for 3 days. My aldosterone levels must have been through the freaking roof. And then I restricted water on top of that, and I took these herbal diuretics. So I had a massive rebound off the show. And even though at some point I tried to lower my carbs and do cardio, you can't get that water off. The only way it was I probably needed like a Lasix is really what I needed, but I didn't have access to I didn't know anything about drugs back then. So I just took these herbal diuretics, and within 2 days or something like that, I think I lost all the fluid. But yeah, if you don't know what to expect, a lot of times you can really get effed up after that. And it had nothing to do. I had zero fat gain. It was just all water weight retention, and that's what happens. You're not gaining any fat back the first 2 weeks after a show. If you gain a lot of weight, it's all water weight, and it's a rebound. And if you have access to diuretics, take a few diuretics, get rid of the water. It doesn't serve any good purpose. Matter of fact, it puts a tremendous strain on your heart. Luckily, I was only 20 years old at the time, or 22 years old. It didn't really matter, but be smart about it. Take a diuretic if you need it.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder, if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates right now on the channel. All new episode of the Heavy Muscle Radio Show. Last night's episode of After Hours, where the panel responds to everything going on right now really the tragic unfolding circumstances surrounding Colin von Moger. So you're going to want to see that. And then, of course, all the episode of Iron Rage, and then Tony Huge, Dr. Tony Huge, on an all-new Guru Talk coming up later this week. For Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.